All right, everybody, and welcome to Hard Rock History, episode 13. And this 13th episode is not going to be unlucky. Let me tell you something. I am your host again, Paulie Christine, with my boy Tom Coyne. And today, again, I say we very fortunate that they even respond to us. This man's an amazing guitar player. He's been in amazing bands, and he is Laurence Archer. Laurence, thank you so much for being with us, man.
It's my pleasure, man. It's great to catch up with you guys. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I mean, so Laurence has been in UFO, has played with Grand Slam with Phil Lynott, had his own band called Stampede. I mean, and Stampede was killer, Laurence. Killer stuff, man.
Yeah. I still sign a lot of albums when I'm out on tour with Grand Slam, and in the past, it amazes me actually how many people were aware of Grand Slam, considering we're back in 1982. I think was the main, was our main sort of stomping years, getting out there doing it. And so yeah, but it's quite nice and quite refreshing to get people and young people coming up with albums to sign.
You know,
So
it's great too. Like a lot of stuff now, I don't have physically. Certain things I buy physically, but
yeah,
I have the iTunes library, and the catalog out there is out there. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
Hurricane Town, the
yeah,
live from Reading bootleg. All
yeah,
the early stuff. I bought. We'll go back to your when you first started, but even I got the first bootleg series of Grand Slam, the green cover with Phil on it.
yeah. Oh
You
right,
know,
yes,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Zoom Records, I think put that out.
yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
all
right.
that
Yeah,
stuff. We were hungry for that stuff because remember we're from the States
yeah.
and we
No,
weren't
I get it,
fortunate.
man. Yeah,
We
yeah,
weren't fortunate enough to see you guys come over here.
yeah, yeah. Well, we really only really did Europe and Ireland and England and some odd bits and pieces here and there, but yeah, we never got to the States, unfortunately, um, due to many factors. But as we would have loved to.
So let's get from the beginning. Musical influence in the family, or what music attracted you to say, okay, man, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
Well, my old man, my father went to art school with Eric Clapton
Oh
and was
wow.
a close friend of Eric in the early days. When we're talking back there's an area in England called Richmond, and all the Stones and Eric and all that lot used to hang around there. There was a few clubs and a few pubs that everybody used to play. Historical, if you go back in, if you read a few of the books from the Stones and the various of that, they name all these places like the Railway and the Crawdaddy Club and um, Ilpie Island and all those places. Uh, so what happened is when I was 15 or 14, my old man took me to the Rainbow in London, and it was a concert put on by Pete Townsend to get Eric back. It was after his issues with his drug issues, and Townsend put on this sort of tribute night for Eric, and Ronnie Lane and all those guys were playing. And I met the guys, and it was really the first concert I'd ever been to, proper concert. And Eric got up and played at the end, and I sort of walked away from that with a mindset of, okay, I think that's what I want to do.
Mm.
It was that easy. I was blown away, but I was a kid, and it was a lot to take in. But I was a mad sportsman. I used to race push bikes, and I went back the next day and sold my one of my push bikes and went and bought a guitar, cheap guitar from the shop, and that's where it started. And obviously, it was back in the days. Obviously, it was all vinyl. I went out and bought loads of vinyl of Clapton, all the known albums, and then I got into Peter Green and all the chess sessions, all the blues chess sessions, and I started copying that. Lifting the needle on the album and running it across the album 20 times. You know, to try and learn note by note. So that was really my first big influence as far as initiating me into wanting to play, you know. So that was it. And then obviously I got into Jeff Beck, and
And did you have what they call the ear, Lawrence, to catch the notes and how to know how to imitate the on the guitar itself?
I think so, yeah. According to everybody else that was listening to me, yes. I mean, for me, you know, I was just doing my best. I was just doing my thing and trying to do it as naturally as possible.
So
Um,
self-taught?
yeah, totally self-taught.
Mm.
Yeah, um, I I had a very fortunate thing when I was at college where I used to skip college. Basically, I went to art school in England, and I used to skip college and go and hang out at a music store with another guitar player, and there was a keyboard player that used to run the two sections of the music store and I'd sort of sit down and learn scales from the keyboard player downstairs. He was a total technician, and the guitar player was a really nice, tasteful guitar player. So I'd sort of get little trinkets from them. But I never went to any lessons or anything. It was all really by ear. And back then, wasn't so easy because you had to do it by ear, or you had to, you know, as I said, you'd have to lift the needle on the vinyl and you know, just try and catch it each time and just listen to it time and time again. Whereas nowadays it's a lot easier. You know, got YouTube, you can slow it down and you can, you
And
know,
the way people are videoing now, they're going right on the guitarist's hands too. So you're seeing the
yes,
whole neck, you're seeing the frets and all the finger work.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much info out there and so much, you know, there's a lot of what I call bedroom guitar players that, you know, sit in front of the computer and they're playing. They're all good technically, and you know, people can learn a lot from that these days.
It's all
Back in
about
the
feeling,
day,
though. I feel too. You know, it's about the feeling.
yeah, it lacks something to me. I still try and it's a strange thing about guitar playing, but I'd rather simplify it and take it from your heart and the way you feel on the at the day, on the time, and at the gig, and I've never been too much of what I call a technician, although a lot of people call me that. I'm not really that much of a technician. I play from my heart, and I play, you know, at being self-taught. You sort of just go with your, you know, you go with your own head and your own mind and your own way forward. I'm not I'm not a big fan. I was talking talking about this to another musician friend of mine recently, Berend Corboys, who's the bass player with Michael Schenker, who lives not far from me in Spain, and he comes and plays with me with. I have a local band for fun here, and he comes and we sort of jam a lot. And it's like I'm not, you know, if I go and see a live band, I want to see them stretch themselves and play and come and feel and play from the heart and not recreate what they've done
Exact
on
note
the
for note.
album exactly verbatim. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
if you go and see a live band, you don't want to listen to the album coming out of that PA that you've just played in your car going to the concert. You know, you want to see some fire and some, you know, you want to see them extend themselves and you know, and that's, you know, I mean, I'm going to see, I don't know whether you've ever heard of a guitar player called Guthrie Gavin, but I'm going to see him in a couple of days' time. He's playing in Valencia. Um, but you know, I just like that element. You know, I mean, I love people as a guitar player. You know, I love the Satriani playing, doing Surfing with the Alien and stuff like that. But when I went to see it, he played it note for note,
Mm.
and I was expecting him to fly away at times, and it didn't really happen. And I was a little bit disappointed. I mean, don't get me wrong; he's a fantastic player, absolutely brilliant player. But for me, I like it when I see people go a little bit off the cuff, you know, and a little bit off the radar, and throw some things in that are not on the album, you know, and make it more of a memorable evening, you know.
Laurence, I have a question for you. My personal two favorite guitar players of all time, Johnny Winter and Rory Gallagher. Would those guys have been any type of influence on you?
Yeah, Rory. Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate to know Rory for a very short period of time. He was a big friend of Phil's. So when I was playing with Phil Lynott, Rory popped up quite a few times in conversation and at the house, and I met Rory at a guitar show in London. Unfortunately, it wasn't that long before his passing, but yeah, I mean, Rory in the early days, you know, I had that, I had those albums, those all the Rory albums, and I would say I'm probably at this point now probably rediscovering Rory.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Because
Oh, I am too. Still, even more. And I've been into him, you know, from a kid.
yeah. And going back to Johnny Winter, you know, I mean, the guys in the band always call me sausage fingers because my head, my but when I was a kid and then when I first started learning guitar, I used to buy the guitar magazines and look at Johnny Winter, you know, and see that. I mean, the guy was tiny. Do you know what I mean? He was skinny. He was skinny like a little
Very
rat, you know.
frail.
And I'd look at his fingers on the fretboard, because back then you take everything, like the way the stance with the guitar, the way they held their hand in with the guitar, you know, how low they had the strap, you know, all these things were weirdly important to you when you start, you know, you get your influences. But I really love the way Johnny Winter looked. I mean, in actual fact, look, here we go. Look, let me show you this.
No.
You might recognize one of those.
Yeah, wow, it's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Wow.
Gibson have just sent it to me. It's the new Epiphone Futura range, and I've always wanted. I've had Firebirds in the past, but when I was with the UFO, I had a couple, but I sold them many years ago, and I haven't had one for a while. So I've been very lucky to be fortunate that they sent me that only a few days ago, actually. So, but it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, it's Johnny Winter was very much part of all that discovery element, you know, when you first time playing, and for me, discovering the music, you know, the music, all that blues element, it was all new to me. So it was all part of the discovery, you know, journey. And yeah, Johnny, Rory, you know, Rory Gallagher was, you know, I mean, he was a force man on stage.
Oh, yeah. He commanded the stage. I was lucky enough to see him. He did play. He occasionally would play the States, but very small clubs. I saw him in a club in Greenwich Village in the late 80s.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
Wow.
he literally tore the place apart. I mean, the guy was just, and it was just a little bit later in his career, too, like, you know.
Yeah.
But he was, and I had the fortune of seeing I saw Johnny Winter for the first time at the Garden, Madison Square Garden in '75. Right. And then I saw him so many times later in his career when he was playing small clubs. I saw him with Muddy Waters in the late '70s when he made that big comeback. Those were that was always my two favorite guitar players. So anytime I talk to a great guitar player like yourself, I'm curious if those guys were influences.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you couldn't avoid that at that point. They were in height, you know. Those, as a guitar player, those that you couldn't avoid that presence, really.
Right.
I mean, Johnny used to feature in so many guitar magazines, and like you know, all the NME, you know, all the magazines and various music things. You'd always see pictures of Johnny where he was playing, and I can't remember whether it was Johnny or Edgar I didn't get to see him in the end, but he did play in a local. There was a guy that used to run a blues club in London, and he used to bring all these guys over. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but I was so close to going, and I really wish I had gone, you know. But
And
yeah, I mean,
what got you more towards the hard rock, where you could, like, those influences were there for you, that you could have been a blues player? So, you know, what turned you on more going towards the hard rock genre?
um, well, I would say probably well UFO, um, Gary Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Were you a Blackmore guy?
I was never really a Blackmore guy. Um, I really, latterly, I really admired what he did, and actually, I did get into like the Rainbow era,
Mm-hmm.
um, um, and I was fortunate enough to play with Jimmy Bain in Wild Horses for a little while, and you know, asked him about all those things with Richie and whatever, and Pete Way was always going on about the stories of you know touring with Richie, you know, UFO and Rainbow or UFO and Purple or whatever it was back in the day. You know, telling Richie that the gigs were cancelled and sent him off on a plane somewhere, and he had to fly back. Um, Obviously, the gigs weren't cancelled, but Pete Way somehow
Just
persuaded
busting his
everyone.
balls.
Wow.
Busted his balls, yeah, yeah. But I have lots of stories from Pete Way. You know, it's he was a bit of a prankster. Let's just say that, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, Richie was a great player, and he influenced a lot of people. You know, but obviously, you know, Ingve and all those guys. You know, they were all influenced by Richie and that look, that whole look. Um, but I would say my first delve into what anything you would call what classic rock or heavy rock was probably UFO
Okay.
and um, and Thin Lizzy. So it'd be Live and Dangerous and Strangers in the
Yeah.
Night. Those two live albums. Um, and up to that point, the other person that really influenced me was Peter Frampton.
Okay.
So
Humble Pie or Frampton Solo?
firstly was Comes Alive, the live album,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got into the Humble Pie side because I didn't even realize he was the same guy because you never really see many pictures of Peter with you know, and some of the classic lineup he wasn't there, but yeah, I mean, I can tell Peter's playing in wherever he's playing, you know, at that stage, his phrasing and he was quite unique in his
Oh yeah.
approach.
His phrasing was
Um,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah, all his phrasing and his, you know, he was one of the first guitar players to use even blues orientated runs like Dorian runs, or we call it in the guitar world, and doing it in a very melodic way. Um, and his phrasing just made it sound very melodic. And yeah, no, I love Frampton. But then I heard Michael, and obviously the Lizzie guys. I love the Lizzie album, the Live and Dangerous Lizzie album. Um, and then from there, I discovered Gary Moore. You know, these things lead on to other things, and then I was very fortunate to tour with Gary in the 80s a couple of times. Stampede supported him, and then I did another support with another band later on, and I become good friends with Gary. And obviously, Gary ripped my guitar solo off in Military Man, which I found, which I was very, um, honored. You know, he came up to me. I was at it was a magazine launch actually in London, and I was with Phil, and Gary came up to me, and we just finished the songs that I'd written, some songs, gone over to Sausalito to the plant with Huey Lewis and recorded these songs. And Phil had played them to Gary unknowingly to me anyway. And Gary came up to me and just went, "Man, you know, I love you playing." It's like, "Well, you're Gary Moore, you know." It's like, you know, you're my hero. You know, he was a big hero of mine. And Gary was a lovely guy. If you knew him, he was a strange guy. If you didn't know him very well, you know, it was like he was quite hard work. He was, you know, you couldn't get behind the person really until you got to know him a little bit. But I was very fortunate to know him reasonably well. And when I toured with Gary in '82, just as a bit of a weird fact, Marshall had given him the new amps at the time, which I think were the JCM 2000s or something, and I was using old JMP 45s. And after about the second gig on the tour, he came up to me and said, "Would you mind if I used your heads?" And I said, "No, of course not." So he ended up plugging into my head. So what you see on the thing, my heads are behind behind his stacks. He was using my heads and had all the new Marshalls all up at the front. But yeah, but
Was that the
Gary
Victims tour for
became
him?
a,
Was that the Victims tour?
no, Corridors of Power.
Oh, Corridor. Oh, wow.
Corridors, yeah, yeah, and that was that. I mean, Jesus Christ, you know, I mean, even at that point, I felt like a bit of a newbie because, you know, I was only 20 years old or 19 years old or whatever, and suddenly I'm standing on stage and Ian Pace, Don Airey, Gary Moore,
There was some
Neil,
lineup.
Neil Murray. You know, originally it was John Sloman singing, but he only lasted about 2 gigs, and I think Gary went, "No, I'm going to sing it myself." So, but the whole band became really good friends with all the guys, and you know, Ian Pace was such a lovely guy, and he would literally come down and tune our drums for him, you know, in the sound check. And I've been fortunate to play with Neil Murray a couple of times myself in the latter years. And I've been friends with Don, you know, for since then really. I don't get to see him much, but I mean, he's always been a good face and a good friend. So it was a massive experience for me. I mean, you know, I was still very green in all that, you know, rock and roll thing, but brilliant experience. But
Laurence, I have one question regarding Gary Moore. If maybe you could shed some light on it, because I've always wondered about this, and since he's not around anymore, you knew him. He never caught on in the States at all, and I always felt that by not having a proper front man in the band at that period of time, middle '80s going into the late '80s, that it really it hurt him, because at least in the States, everybody had a front man. And they were usually guys that not only had good voices, but they looked really good. And he seemed to, at least what I kind of could piece together, had like an adversity to kind of giving into a front man. Do you think that to some degree held his career back?
Maybe as a mainstream artist, yeah, until he got to the blues era, I think.
Right. Right.
Well,
But as a rock thing, I think you know, Gary could have been a little bit difficult, and I think you know, maybe I don't know whether it was an ego thing or whatever it was, but I know I did read an article recently. Somebody sent me on the G-Force era, and I know that the record company and various other things, they were always trying to put a front man in, and I think Gary sort of just went, no, that's not what I want. You know, I want to sing this myself. And I know that Gary had at one point he had can't remember his name. Should remember his name. The singer.
Charlie
Uh,
Hunn. Yeah,
yeah,
Charlie Hunn in
and
the.
Charlie Hunt and who was the other guy? It's from the band that Tonka used to be in, Welsh band. Um, God, I can't
Oh,
remember.
and
I'll think of it.
well,
Hmm?
I thought the problem was is that Gary's voice. I love Gary's voice. First of all,
Yeah,
I think if Gary sucked as a singer, then you would have had a lead vocalist. You
yeah.
know,
I mean, you know, it was a bit of a play-off, really, wasn't it? Because it wasn't a bad. You know, I mean,
It was good
I
in the
like
studio,
Gary's.
but there was a
I
lot
like
of
Gary's.
live stuff that he really struggled live.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think in hindsight, you know, on the rockier stuff, maybe he should have got
yeah,
a
absolutely.
decent front man. But
Yeah,
as I said, I don't know whether it might have been a control thing for Gary,
yeah.
whether he thought he was losing control if there was a singer, or if it was taking away from his guitar prowess or whatever. I don't know, but I know that he got rid of John Sloan very very quickly.
yes, he
Um,
did.
on the Corridors of Power thing.
Yeah, they did the Japan tour, and I think. But when you got to him, was he doing the English side, the UK tour when Sloman got kicked?
Yeah, well, John was on the. If my memory serves me right, I think he was there like one night. I think he was there like one night or two nights, and then he was off the tour. So I don't know what happened with
Yeah.
the
Well,
political thing
I got
or
that. I got that live in Japan, and I love. I can't wait until tomorrow. The studio is song is unbelievable,
yeah,
and then you hit a live in Japan, and then him and John switch vocals, and it just don't work. You could tell
no,
it didn't work. His range wasn't there for that type of stuff. So yeah, I can understand.
yeah.
Then,
I
but
did
then he
see them. I
grabbed
think they did
Neil.
a warm up at the Marquee before we went on tour, and I went down to it, and it did seem a bit odd, to be honest, an odd choice.
Right,
Um,
right. And plus, John was a keyboard player and he had Don Airy at the time, right?
yeah,
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 right. He's also in the band, so that was like just an extra man to begin with.
yeah. I mean, you know, the amazing thing about that lineup was is you know if you go back to the Coliseum days, you know Don and Gary and even Neil Murray, I think did a short stint in Coliseum.
Hmm.
But I mean, you know, just incredible musicians. You know, blew me away every night. And watching Ian Pace play, you know, I loved Ian's playing. It's
Doing
fantastic.
Hurricane, oh my God, a
Yeah,
nuclear attack,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
brilliant stuff. You're so lucky, Lawrence, to be. I mean, even probably 10 feet away,
yeah,
watching all
yeah.
that
No, I
stuff
should
go on,
stand on
man.
the side of the stage. Um, and weirdly, Gary used to stand on the side of the stage and watch me for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, he did, and that always freaked me out. Probably put me on a bit of an edge, but anyway. Um,
And it must have been a real, shine to you that they really promoted Military Man on the
yeah,
Run for
yeah,
Cover album.
yeah. No, I mean it was um, I would have preferred to get a little bit more credit, to be honest. But you know, that's something that you know. I mean, I wrote the song with Phil, and you know, the demos were there. We did full, you know, 48 track album spec demos for quite a few of those songs, Sisters of Mercy and Military Man and 19 and all those.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, Gary praised me for the guitar solo, um, and you know, it was weird. It was weird sometimes to watch him when he did it, and you know, it's like, well, actually, that's my track. You know, it's like it's a but you know,
Well,
in
I
these
read you
days,
worked that out though, didn't you?
uh, some of it, yeah. I mean, you know, it's still a fight. still a fight to get your money sometimes, but yeah.
Do you ever get proper? Did you ever get proper publishing for it?
Not for Military Man. No, it's still a fight, to be honest.
Mm.
But the problem is it wasn't so much the Lizzie estate, but Gary's estate. I think I don't know what. I think there was some compromising deal that happened when they recorded it, because Gary was always very business minded and always had, it's like when they did the concert for Phil in Dublin, where Gary basically hosted the whole thing. I mean, he took like 90% of that show, and he had all the rights to it. I mean, the song is mine and Phil's, and I would have liked to have got proper credit for it in that way. Most of the people that know me and know of the early Grand Slam and know that obviously they heard that song many times live. That obviously where it came from, where it originated from. So, but the industry and stuff is it's a different matter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Some of the songs, yes, are fine because I already had them registered. Some of the songs I actually had half written for a Stampede, because when I joined up with Phil, we were sitting around waiting for our second advance for our next studio album. So I was already writing, and Dedication and Military Man, and that they came basically from basic ideas that I was working on at the time. And I played them to Phil, and then we went from there.
All right, let's get back on track now. Stampede itself, how did that form, and how did you get the record deal? What were the origins of that?
Well, we got asked. I was living in London, and strangely, there was a big house, and lots of people lived in there. Bernie Toulmay, Rocky Newton, who was the bass player, Frank Noon, who was the original drummer,
Def Leppard drummer. Holy cow!
and Joe Elliott. We all lived in this big house in Isleworth in London, West London. And the other guitar player from Wild Horses, John Lockton, also lived there, because him and Rocky used to be in a band together throughout their childhood and their musical career. Basically, their early thing, Rocky and John had a band together, and they were the guys that Def Leppard at the time, when they started, looked up to, because they were supporting them in their local area around Sheffield and up north. And then myself, I got asked. I was told that Brian Robertson wasn't going to be carrying on with the Wild Horses thing, and Jimmy Bain. I went and had a meeting with Jimmy Bain, and he said, we want to carry this on, and so I did a very short stint in Wild Horses, which was basically like a run of shows over about 6 months. And Jimmy wasn't in a particularly good way at that time, on and off. And then I think we knew that he was going back off to, what was he going to do? I can't remember what it was. One of the big bands, Dio or something like that. And
it would have been Dio around that time then, probably.
Yeah. I think it was Dio that he went off to do. Anyway, basically left, and the whole idea was we sort of scarpered and what we're going to do? Well, it's Wild Horses. We're going to stampede out of here. So we did. already had some songs on to play. We presented it to Polydor. Polydor didn't have any A&R at the time. Weirdly, they had no A&R department. So somehow our manager, who was a guy called Ronnie Fowler, who was Don Arden's right-hand man, presented the songs to the label manager at Polydor, and yeah, we got signed up, and I think we were already booked to play Reading, and they said we'll do a live broadcast, we'll do a live recording from there, and we did another festival. Literally, I think it was almost back to back, maybe the following weekend or something. And they brought the OB unit, outside broadcast unit, to there, and we recorded that as well. So both shows were recorded, but it was fast and frantic. It was all pretty fast and frantic back then. It was like running at us, and we were trying to keep up.
That official bootleg live is brilliant.
Yeah.
Really is.
I mean, people love it. People seem to love it. It's rough and ready, as far as I'm concerned. It's rough and ready, but it seems to
high
work.
energy. You guys are, really.
Oh yeah, we're definitely high energy. Yeah, we were pretty manic. Do
you remember who else was with you guys on that Reading festival? What other bands was playing in '82?
Oh man, I've got a poster.
I mean, I could always look it up, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, there was some. Jesus Christ. I don't quote me,
okay.
because I get it wrong. Because I used to, I used to hang at Reading. I think I went there the year before. Well, I had backstage access, and I went there 2 or 3 years after. When Ozzy and all that lot were playing.
I think Gary was on that one.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: was it overwhelming? What was, first of all? Do you remember what slot you had? Were you very early in the day?
I think we were about mid-afternoon.
So maybe like 2, 3 o'clock, something like that.
We weren't a late slot, and we weren't first on. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, Reading Festival back then was quite big. It was quite a big thing to do, and they had some massive bands. I mean, they used to bring some fantastic bands over from your end, from obviously your side of the pond. I remember, God, who was there? I mean, I think I've just about everybody over the period of time played there.
Well, let me ask: were you overwhelmed in a sense of audience-wise? Because I'm sure the crowd was pretty big when you were playing that at that time. Right?
I mean,
and you're a 20-something-year-old kid at the time, right?
Yeah, I was 20, I think, or 20. Yeah, 21.
Right. So I mean, and that is obviously that's the biggest show you're playing at that moment, also, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was definitely the biggest thing we'd ever done. Yeah. And then from that, I think we went straight out on tour with Gary, because it was 82. Yeah, I think we went straight out on the Corridors of Power tour, and then we went straight into.
And did the labels hook you up with Gary?
I don't think so. I think it probably would have been our agent or whatever.
Okay.
Laurence, I had a couple of questions about the live album before we move on. there were a lot of tracks on there that were not on the studio album, especially like Shadows of the Night, which I thought was like one of the best songs on the live album.
Yeah.
Why did those songs not go on? Like, why was there such a disparage between the live album and were those songs supposed to be for a second album, or they just didn't make the cut, or?
No, they were recorded. I think they're on an EP. When we signed to Polydor, as I said, I had a few songs in the bag, and we did a few demos. And the first song that was released was actually the demo of a song we did called "Days of Wine and Roses."
Right.
And what happened is that they released that as our first single, but that was basically the demo, and it went into the charts in England because it was quite a poppy song, really.
Yeah.
And we had already sort of taken our mantle as like quite a heavy rock band, as it were, quite a straightforward, loud rock band. And when we had the success with the single, they were like, "Can you write another 20 of these?" It's like, well, no, we've just recorded. This was like in the middle of doing the studio album, and we're going, no, we're going out on tour with Gary Moore, and we're doing this and we're doing that. We're not doing 20 songs like Days and Wine and Roses, because it was very poppy song. But I'm pretty sure Shadows of the Night was recorded and went out on an EP, because I know we did Moving On and one of the other faster tracks that were recorded and put out on an EP.
Yeah, there was an EP with Days of Wine and Roses, Moving On, Photographs,
yeah,
and Missing You.
Missing You.
I
Yeah.
love Missing You. That's a great song.
Yeah.
Now, on the second half of that album, particularly like Shadows of the Night, right straight through to There and Back, I thought it had a very UFO type of sound to it.
Yeah.
Was that already an influence? I mean, of course, we know you ended up in Europe, but were they an influence at that time?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, probably not that consciously, but unconsciously, I think yes.
Okay.
I think, as I said, I mean, I used to listen to Strangers. I mean, I'm talking about when I was 17 or whatever. I'd just been out on tour with Saxon with the Trek, and when I came back, I bought the Strangers in the Night album, and I remember just playing it again and again and again, and I mean, I just loved everything about it. But again, I was listening to Gary Moore and various other things. I had other influences, but UFO was a big influence on me at that time, and certainly Michael was. So it was a weird situation for me latterly when Pete asked me to join UFO, and then I ended up playing all those songs.
Right.
It's like, because it was like we recorded the album. I think we'd already played some shows, and then we went and recorded the album. But it was, Phil in UFO very much wanted to play the newer material. Because it was like they were a little bit sick of just going out and repeating Strangers in the Night, what that set list basically. So we tried as much as we could, but the more we went along, the more we sort of introduced back a lot of the Strangers in the Night stuff. So although I sort of refused to learn them verbatim, I tried to do them in my own way, because I didn't want to be, a Michael clone or anything. So I tried to do it my own way. But it was a strange thing to happen when you're a kid, and then suddenly, I mean, it was the same thing with Phil when I joined up with Phil Lynott, because after the Stampede thing, as I said, I was waiting around for the second um, advance for the second album, second studio album of Stampede, when Phil asked me to join up with Grand Slam. But when I was 16, 17, there used to be a fantastic TV show in England, which basically used to be live, used to call Sight and Sound in Concert,
Mm-hmm.
which was basically a BBC
Mhm.
show, and it was on the Sunday night, and they'd literally have 1 week would be Thin Lizzy live, and this is 76, 1976. Next week it would be Uriah Heep. Next week it would be AC/DC. Next week it would be UFO. Next week, but the way it was recorded, it was very raw, and they were all in sort of 3,000 seat or 2,000 seater sort of theatres in London or in UK. And as a 17-year-old, when I watched the Lizzie thing, I said to my old man, I said, that's what I want to do. One day I'm going to play with him. And it was a bit of a joke. And then, like 3 years later, there I am standing in front of Phil, so, but, the whole, people ask me how I met Phil and how it came about, the whole Grand Slam thing in the beginning. But Wild Horses were basically managed by the Thin Lizzy management, and that's where I met Phil. And Phil got up and jammed with us 2 or 3 times. We did a residency at the Marquee with the Wild Horses, and Phil jumped up a couple of times. So that's where I met Phil. But yeah, going back to your question, UFO was definitely a big influence, I would say. And, you don't write songs consciously that sound like anything, but sometimes these things just come, these things just
Go right
talk.
into you, bleed into what you're playing or what you're thinking at the time, right? Or how
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
feeling
I
that
mean,
day.
I mean, everybody, even the old blues guys and the thing, I mean, everybody's influenced by certain things, and it's going to come out. I mean, I've heard everybody from Nuno to thingy talk about this, and it's like you 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 can't be accused of ripping people off necessarily. It's not about ripping people off. It's about or copying people. It's about everybody's going to be influenced by what they listen to as a kid or what they listen to as a player or what they and you go, oh, I really like that, and you might go away and sort of learn it roughly, and then it becomes part of your sort of playing. I mean, I just around the Gary Moore time, I remember until Gary Moore is, I met Randy Rhodes in the we had a couple of little underground rock clubs in London, and Ozzy was over, and I think they were rehearsing in Birmingham or whatever, but they came down to London, and I don't know why they were down in London, but I had no idea. I'd never heard of Randy before, but I was very, literally one evening, I think I just, was like, yeah, have you met this guy? He's Ozzy's guitar player. And it's like, hello. But he became you know, quite a big thing for me too. But, I love Randy. I thought he was a fantastic player.
Blizzard wasn't out then, Lawrence, when you met him.
I don't think it was, no.
Okay, yeah. So then he was working with Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley then too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it
No, I
was. It was
think
the
they were in
original.
I think they were in the writing
Okay,
stage.
process.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I fact checked, and your day had Randy California, Against the Grain, The Angels, You, Overkill, Tank, Baron Rojo, Praying Mantis, Trust, and the main headline was Budgie.
Ah, right. Yeah, that's right. Budget. Yeah.
And you guys are fortunate enough they made a Reading Rock LP and you
That's
guys were
right.
on
Yeah,
that.
they did make a Reading Rock LP. Yeah, I remember that, and I know that we've got 1 or 2 tracks on there. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, it was a 3-day lineup. You know, the next day was Iron Maiden, Gary Moore, Tigers. The day after that was MSG, you know, Marillion. So, I mean, that was a. Did you stay the
Ye-
whole festival? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, I think I was there for them for the whole
Oh
thing.
my God, that's fantastic. And that's like in the beginnings of everybody on
Yeah,
10, raw, young,
yeah,
hungry.
yeah.
God.
Well, I mean, I I have to say this, but around this time, I was at I was actually living with Bruce Dickinson. So Bruce and I used to share a place in a place called Brentford Dock, and he was. I mean, just prior to that, um,
Was this one who was in Samson?
he was in this. No, this is when he was in Maiden, but
Okay.
just prior to that, some friends of mine and myself, because Bruce didn't drive, drove him up to meet the Maiden guys. I can't remember whether it was Donington or Reading, but I think it was Reading. Um, and it was a bit like all backstage, hush hush, da 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 da. Who's going to be the next singer thing? And we took Bruce up there. Um,
Oh, so Deanna
but
was still was Deanna still with them at the time, or they were looking for the singer
I don't know
then?
what the situation was at the time.
Okay.
Um, but Bruce had got the call to go and meet them all, and it was at Reading Festival. I presume maybe they weren't even playing. Memory's not that great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, then he joined Maiden, and then I knew Bruce and his Mrs. Jane, and I ended up me and my partner at the time we shared this house on the Brentford Dock on the marina in on the River Thames in London for a couple of years, and then I did I had some good times with Bruce. I did the maiden voyage, the Virgin flight, the Virgin Airways maiden voyage, which was an incredible experience. Me and Phil and just about every celebrity that comes out of England was on this flight, and it was like 50 crates of Dom Perignon and bands and Richard Branson walking around with his captain's outfit on and all that, and they'd taken all the seats out the front of the plane so everybody could stand at the front have a party. Um, and there was like Miss World, and there's lots of news people and Boy George, all the guys from Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Wow. Surreal.
It was a surreal thing, and we were only supposed to be there for like 2 days and then fly back, and that was in New York, obviously. And then I ended up staying for about 3 weeks. So I met a couple of people and a lovely lady, and Phil and I stayed on for a couple of weeks. Phil went back, and I came. I think I flew back about 3 or 4 weeks later. But in that time, um, Bruce came up and stayed with me at my hotel because he was fencing. He was doing some fencing training with the New York guys from the New York Olympic team or something because he was
Yeah,
mad.
the whole thing's actually everything you say. It's in his book. I don't know if you read his book.
No, probably not. No.
Yeah, it's all in there.
Yeah. I hope it's not all in there, but
Well, I mean, pretty much the synopsis you're giving. Yeah.
yeah. They were doing the album down in Fort Lauderdale, or it was down in. They were recording in Miami or somewhere.
In Miami, yeah.
Yeah, and he flew up. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but I've sort of lost touch with Bruce over the last sort of 10 years or so. I don't really see him much, if at all, really, recently. But as I said, I left the industry for about 10 years. I went into the film industry for quite some time. So uh, I didn't retire from the music thing, but I just stopped playing for about 10 years. So,
Mm.
um,
So now UFO is next after Stampede, right? For you, professionally, or did you get the
no,
call from Phil first?
no. After Stampede, I did a solo album for Japan. I played with a few people. I had a bit of a stint with John Entwistle and a few other people, where I was just like hired gun for a while.
Okay.
And then I did a solo album for Japan in '86, and then I sort of had I had a solo band called the LA Secrets, and we really only played around London and a couple of shows up north. And then I had a band with Mike, who is the singer of Grand Slam at this point now,
Mm.
called Rhode Island Red. Um,
I actually have the demos to that.
do you? Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
the cassette demo of that. It's really good.
Yeah, weirdly we had a big following, and we didn't do that much. And we never got. We were signed by Status Quo's manager, um, but we never really got out of the box. You know, we did the demos and we played a few shows, and then I think it was about 87, 88 was when Pete said, "Come and join UFO." So it was. I sort of left that project to go and do the UFO, so it was a little later, yeah.
So now is
But
the band formed already? Was Clive in the band already?
no, I no when I did it, Andy was in the band originally.
Okay. Oh wow.
I did want to backtrack to the LA Secret stuff. I had a few questions about that.
Yeah,
Uh, there was the solo album that came out in Japan, and then
yeah,
the other, I guess they were demos with a singer called Peter Scallon.
yeah. That's right.
Right,
Yeah,
which I think that actually has saw the light of day within the last couple of years, right?
yeah. It got released
Steel
on
Hard Records picked it
yeah,
up.
yeah. And I think it got exported to the States. You know, I think it
It
had
did. I have a
released.
copy of it right
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Show the cover,
Um,
Tommy.
Was that from the same set? Now, the album that came out in Japan, you were singing,
yeah.
and the other one with Peter Scala. Is that from basically the same session?
No, no. It's two
Two
totally
separate things.
different times. The thing that I did for Japan, I literally did it in like 48 hours, and that was I did like two sessions, and one is with Zach Starkey playing drums, and the other one is with Clive playing drums. So we did two sessions, and then from that, it went on to me trying to form the band LA Secrets, which
Okay.
I had uh, probably. I think I held auditions for like nearly like a year for singers, trying to find. I had this thing in my head that I wanted the next Steve Perry, and I had this guy sing for me called Sam Blue. I had
Sam Blue was really good. I have a lot
yeah,
of yeah, he was on a lot of stuff.
yeah. He's the nearest I could get to Steve Perry. But Sam was busy doing a lot of sessions at that time. So in the end, I got Peter Scallon, and then in the end, I changed the whole thing up a little bit and called it Rhode Island Red, and that became the band at the end that I had with Mike. That was with Gary Liederman, and I had a Spanish drummer called Manola Antonana. So, and then from that, apart from doing a few sessions and bits and pieces, uh, if I'm right, then the next thing I did, I think, was UFO. Um, yeah. Okay.
And how did Pete Way get you on his radar?
I'd spoken to Pete a few times before, and I'd met him, and somebody had spoken to him about me because Pete was always wanting a British guitar player in UFO. That seems to be his thing. He wanted a guy that sounded British and came from the British sort of background. He wanted that sort of thing in UFO. And we met quite a few times, and there was when he was in Wasted, I was playing and recording some stuff with Medicine Head. Do you know the band Medicine Head?
I'm not familiar with them. No.
No.
They had a big single called One and One is One, and they went on. John Fiddler went on to do the British Lions, I think it was, before the Steve Harris thing.
Okay.
It was, I think. But I was recording stuff at John's house, and in where we lived in Twickenham, there was basically this like a row of roads called Third, Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Road, and Pete and all the Wasted guys like lived the next road up, and obviously we used to bump into them in pubs and stuff like that. And Twickenham, where it was, is where it was my local area at the time. That's where sort of where I lived. So I was never very far away from where Pete lived. So I sort of got to know him then, and we had a few big nights out. Let's just say that, and I introduced him to a few friends of mine, girlfriends, and various other things. And we became good friends. And then he immediately called me up when I think they had been in the States and they'd been auditioning. I think they auditioned like 70 guys from the MIT, or from the Music Institute Guitar, or GIT, or whatever you call it.
Well, first of all, Laurence, basically Phil Mogg scrapped. He did the Misdemeanor tour, scrapped that entire band, basically, right? And I guess then he started talking with Pete again to form because for us in the States, when High Stakes came out, it was like, oh my God, Pete Way's back.
Yeah.
Because we had our dealings of Wasted, and and Phil going on his own and keeping UFO alive, so it was a shocker for the formation of those two getting back together anyway. So go ahead now.
So I think they've been in America basically auditioning guys, all these guys I call bedroom guitar players that's been at the Guitar Institute. They sit down, but they said whenever they got into a part where they're trying to play some rhythm parts, it never really worked the way they wanted it to work. So he called me up and said, look, would you consider, being in the band? And I said, yes, I'd love to do it, but both you and Phil have got to stop drinking, or stop drinking heavily.
Excessively.
Pete was always a pleasant drunk, but Phil wasn't. So
moody guy.
Yeah. So Phil stopped completely, actually, more or less the whole time, right up to the end, which is why I left, because it all became very unpredictable again at the end. But for the time that we did, we did all the shows and we did all the album and the recording and the Japan straight as a die. So it was pleasurable and great fun, and Pete did his thing, and I think he was probably straighter than he had been for a long time. His doing was drinking the odd beer here and there. So but when I joined, when I first rehearsed with them, it was basically the classic lineup of UFO. It was Andy, Paul Raymond.
Oh wow.
Pete. Then Andy's father in America got ill, and Andy had to leave to go back because I think his dad's got a ranch or a farm, and I think he had to go back and look after his dad and look after the farm or something. So Andy had to go. So I was the one that got Clive in because Clive had been playing on my solo stuff, and I'd done quite a few things with him, including sessions and stuff. So I got Clive in. Something happened with Paul, and I think it was something to do with Phil and Paul falling out. I'm not sure, but something happened with Paul, and he left, and I got Jem Davies in it. Yeah. So I think they already knew Jem anyway, because I think Tobruk had or whatever his band was had toured with UFO previously. So yeah, that's how it came together.
Did they have material already, Laurence, or did you start from the ground up?
Start from the ground up. I mean, basically, again, I wrote, I would say, 90% of the material on the High Stakes album. I think Pete had written one song, which I think you can tell on the album which song it is. But the other thing, I mean, I'd spoken to Phil, and Phil, you know, as a writing process with UFO and with Michael, it was very much, he was just given almost a finished article of a bunch of riffs, guitarists, which he had to sing over, which if you really listen to UFO, you hear that it's him battling to sing over something that's not necessarily a melodic element.
Right, should be more rhythm guitar work going on as he's singing instead of the lead. Yeah.
And Phil's a massive Bruce Springsteen fan, and he loved all that type of material, and so I got to write. You know, basically, I went in and I sort of grabbed a load of my ideas and it was actually only me, Clive, and Pete rehearsed. We went down to a place called Bluestone Studios, which was basically just a rehearsal studio out in the middle of nowhere in Wales, and I sort of wrote and arranged these songs, and Phil didn't even come in to the rehearsal room on any basis other than he'd pop his head round the door. He'd just be off walking around. I don't know whether he's sitting in his room writing lyrics or what he was doing most of the time. So although I had like chorus melodies and various other melodies sort of implanted, we didn't know what he was going to do. It was a complete. It wasn't till sort of later on, very much later on, when I'd finished. I basically recorded and arranged all those tracks and finished them without the vocal on, and then we went into the studio and did the vocals separately. So
you recorded 12 tracks complete and waiting on Phil, basically?
Essentially, yeah.
Wow.
So I would write. I sort of have a method of writing, and that is, you know, you do, this is the intro, this is the first verse, then we've got a bridge, and then we go back into the second verse, and then we've got another bridge, and then we go into the chorus, and then then it's the guitar solo, then it's the breakdown, and I'd sort of I'd score all this out, and get into the studio, and then we put it down in this arrangement. But because of my writing thing, I sort of could hear everything in my head, how the structure of the song would go, even if I didn't know what Phil was going to sing exactly. I sort of knew roughly what the structure was what the structure should be. So yeah, so myself and Clive sort of did most of the work regarding arrangements and the structures of all of those songs. Apart, I think I probably even arranged the song that I think they'd already demoed one of the songs in Birmingham with another guitar player. I can't remember which song it was, but it's a very typical Pete Way song. It's a very typical Pete Way song.
Is it standard operating procedure? And I'll tell you why I'm going to ask you this question. I had interviewed Danny Vaughan for another podcast I was involved with. And he was talking about when they were doing the albums Save Your Prayers. And he said that himself and Paul Chapman wrote the entire album.
Yeah.
He would drop around occasionally with his girlfriend and just see how they were doing.
Yeah.
Really contributed nothing to the album. He said
no.
Tonka wrote all the music and he himself, Danny, wrote all the lyrics.
Yeah.
But when it came out, of course, the first name on all the songs was Peter Way. Was this kind of the way it was when you were in UFO?
Yes, it definitely was that way. Yeah, it's exactly that. The only thing I would say is I did manage to get maybe a couple of hours out of Pete when we were actually rehearsing up in the pre-production rehearsal for the album. I got him for 2 or 3 hours a day. You couldn't hold him for much longer. I mean, that was.
He had very low energy, I guess, back then, right?
Yeah. He had other things.
He had plenty of energy
on his mind. He had other things on his mind. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, my agreement with them was that obviously, if Phil wrote the majority of the lyric, so it was basically let's just split it. I think at one point we were going, let's just split half the album at all 4, and then the other side we were going to split proper splits. But I can't even remember what it was in the end. But it's no great shakes for me. I was just I was riding a wave of being a young man in a band that I'd looked up to for many years. Even though people say never meet your heroes, but it's like, right. They were an interesting bunch. Him and Phil, we got into quite a lot of scrapes, not between us, but it's like those two guys were interesting. And I loved Pete, me and my missus, and I did some shows with Pete not long ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
When he was singing?
When he was singing very badly.
Yes. Well, highlights for me, running up the highway, unbelievable, Backdoor Man. And me and Tommy were discussing before you came on. I was wondering if Phil was giving you the green light. You did a lot of riffing on that album. And there's some songs ending, you're just going off, Laurence. It's sounding great, And I'm like, and I was wondering, you got the leeway, or was that, as you're saying now, you wrote everything and Phil just came in and was like, fuck it, we're going to keep it this way and let it go.
Yeah, essentially the arrangements and the things and everything was done before Phil started singing. And then when we got to the final mix with the vocal, I was there and Kit Wolven was producing. But really it was me and Kit because I felt like it was my baby, really. Do you know what I mean?
It really feels like that. Did you have to do a lot of overdubs, or was everything straight ahead when you went into the mixing?
I only had to do overdubs. I mean, there are overdubs on there, yeah, but
But
It was
nothing
mainly
changed in the sense of the where the origins of the songs were. You like all that riffing at the ends and in the middle parts.
no, no, no. Everything was done at the same. I mean,
Yeah.
most of it was done at the same time. We were down in the studio in Launceston, I think, where I did most of the guitars, and then another place called in Burgess Hill, which was a smaller studio where we got Terry Reid into and um, uh, thingy Langer, Mutt Langer's missus, who came in and did some vocals, and we got Terry Reid in to do some vocals as well. And that was all done in Burgess Hill, and I think we did the majority of overdubs there. Actually, anything that was needed, you know, I think if there was something rhythmically that I might have needed to do, and sometimes it would just be an arpeggio picking guitar or something just to run behind the chorus. I think I would did it there, but I know I did the majority of stuff in Launceston.
It's a brilliant album, man. It stands on its own, honestly, and it should get more
Yeah.
recognition, for what it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm very honoured and blown away by I see some of the UFO pages on Facebook and stuff like that, and you've got your hardcore Michael fans and stuff like that, and I understand that, and Michael's great, and he's a hero of mine, and but in the in the recent couple of years, I've noticed that there's been a lot of praise for those two albums, the live album and the studio album. So, it humbles me to think that these people, these people like it.
So getting to that, thank God that there is a recording of you live to show
Yeah,
how powerful the band was and how great your guitar playing was, because everything's great. Like I said, let's put it this way. If I'm a UFO fan, I'm kind of pissed that you are playing a lot of new material, but I understand why you're playing a lot of new
yeah,
material. And then you're
yeah.
stuck to Love, Rock Bottom, Lights Out, Only You Can Rock Me, you did that. So when Love to Love comes on, and I got it on, I go, okay, let's see what this guy's all about. And my man, you knock everything out of the park. Rock Bottom, you had the inflection, you had the feeling, the tone, and even putting your own spin to it, Lawrence.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Seriously, man. No
It's
bullshit.
just between you guys and me. It's a difficult thing to be sat on that pedestal or that mantle, and it's a which way do you swing? Do you try and be Michael Schenker #2, or do you just try and be yourself? And really, I just wanted to be myself, but play uh play tribute to the song and the melodic and the originality, the original of it, rather than copying it exactly, which I think would have been pointless. I think putting your own little twist, but still being truthful to the song and what people liked. I mean, it's
When
a
you first
difficult place to get to be.
when you first
It's
heard
like,
Strangers, though, what was your like songs like? Was Rock Bottom Holy Shit or Love to Love like the feeling and
yeah,
the
man.
melody?
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, I was like 17 years old, and it was blowing me away. Yeah,
And
yeah.
now to be on that stage and playing those notes, I mean, it must have really, that's again the word surreal,
Yes,
you
it
know?
is. It is surreal, and sometimes when I think back to it, it's like did did I take it all in? Did I really absorb it all at the time? Because it was yeah, it's a surreal thing, and playing with Phil Lynott, playing with UFO. I mean, the two albums that I loved, I ended up playing with the those two bands essentially, and it was and that part of it is surreal. Um, and as I said, I was 21 when I was with Grand Slam, and standing there with Phil, who was Phil Lynott, I'm talking about, who was, an icon then. He was a massive icon then, and I can't even explain what it's like to to be in that situation when you're a young man.
So now, how does UFO end for you though to get to Phil Lynott?
Well, essentially, we came back off of the Japan shows, and we played in Russia, and Phil fell off the wagon. Let's just say that.
Um,
And he fell off the stage in Russia, broke his leg. And all the work that we'd done to, you have to understand that if you Phil, walked away from a few shows,
oh. All right, everybody. Mother Nature called, and we had to take a break. So we're back. So Laurence, we're talking about you guys are in Russia. Phil falls off the wagon again, unfortunately, and he breaks his leg. So now let me ask you: did you have more dates to go on with, or was that towards the end of the touring cycle anyway? With the
that was the end of the tour, the dates we had in place. But we were actually due to go to America, and the plan was for me to be the guitar player in America, and Michael to get up and do a few songs. And that was the idea of what was going to be the next thing in the States.
So they were in negotiation with Shankar already. They were talking to Shankar.
Yeah. We're talking to Michael about coming on and doing 4 or 5 numbers or something at the end, and that was the deal, because at the time, though, I think the relationship between Michael and Phil was still very fractious. But to make the American tour work, I think they were going to need Michael to be on the bill, as it were. So that was the discussion. But the thing that happened in Russia, just going back to that, we'd been in Japan, we flew to Moscow directly from Tokyo or Osaka, and when we got to Moscow, it was raining, and they'd left all our luggage out on the runway. And Phil took exception to this and wasn't very happy. And this is still at the time where you get followed by the KGB when you walked out of the airport. And we're all very tired because of the timeline and everything. And they went off and stayed in the they basically booked the Russian Olympic Hotel in Moscow for us all to stay in. But they also had they picked us up from the airport in like this old 52-seater coach with this young lady interpreter, and they said, "Oh, we've planned all this sightseeing thing for you in Moscow." It's like, okay, well,
we didn't ask for that.
It ended up Clive, Pete, and Phil went back to the hotel, and Jem and myself sat on this 52-seater coach, and we were driven up to Red Square, right up to we went into places you shouldn't have gone into. It was interesting, and then we ended up sort of having dinner in this. It was a weird experience because the poverty and everything that's going on in Russia at the time was horrendous. But seeing the other side of it was interesting, certainly an experience. But and then the next day we were on an overnight train to St. Petersburg, and not not being very aware or very conscious of what Phil and Pete's go-to was. They put crates of vodka in the carriages, as you know. So when we arrived the next morning in St. Petersburg, unfortunately Phil had fallen desperately off the wagon, and it wasn't good. And then when we got on stage, we couldn't sound check because somebody was shot by the military in the piazza. It was a massive piazza in the middle of St. Petersburg. So we couldn't sound check, and we ended up just being coached up to the gig, got on the stage, and Phil just walked off the front of the stage. He missed there was a flying camera on a crane, and he went to step out on it and missed it, and just fell on.
Was that the first song?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now, what do you is the gig done? That's it?
Yeah. Well, we carried on as much as we could, and then what happened actually was the back then the security was all Russian military, and what surrounded the stage was Russian military vehicles, and where he'd fallen onto this tank type thing, and these Russian military guys picked Phil up, and basically put him on the side of the stage, and he'd broken his leg really, really badly, and they sort of just pushed him out onto the stage. Next thing you know, he's like falling. It was like a comedy of errors. It was the most thing. But anyway, yes, we stopped then because it was ridiculous. But Phil got rushed off. Then they realised, obviously, that he was badly injured, and he got rushed off to a Russian hospital.
Was the crowd okay, or did they get a little nutty that you guys can't, stop this show short?
Yeah, I think they were all confused with what was going on, to be honest. It was all in and out and over very quickly. But my biggest, for me, when you have these characters in the band and the unpredictability of, back then, Michael and Phil in particular in UFO back in the day, sometimes, they wouldn't turn up at the gig. They'd get on a plane and fly somewhere else, or they do something random. And
they had fist fights.
Yeah. So there was quite a few big promoters around Europe, especially, where they'd been let down by UFO, and we'd spent all this time rebuilding the
brand,
the trust, and then for me it was like, well, we've just blown all that work out of we've just blown our cover there, So when I got back to England, I just went, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore, and I didn't, and I sort of I actually just spent all my money racing. I was into racing cars and karts and motorbikes, so I spent 2 years just mucking around. I did an album for that band, Medicine Head, which I don't think ever got released. I think it got shelved, but I think some of it's out now. But yeah, I sort of left. That was really, had more or less left the industry morosely at that point. I was so disappointed in, it took the wind out of my sails, really, the whole thing. When you think you're flying, and then suddenly it's like, oh God. But
did you put the guitar to rest for the time, Laurence, or were you still practicing, writing riffs?
I didn't play for 10 years.
Wow.
It was actually Clive was in blues band, and this is, you know, we're talking probably 8-9 years later. Guy was in a blues band, and he phoned me up and he said, "Do you want to come to this gig?" And I went to the gig, and it was actually the singer who was in Colosseum at the time, Paul Williams, and I went to the show, and they, between them, said, "Look, it's criminal that you're not playing anymore. You got to do something." So we put together a blues rock band thing. We played a couple of shows in London, and we had fans flying in. We played these little pubs in London, and we had fans flying in from Sweden and Norway, and you know, it was incredible. And then sort of got back on the horse a little bit, you know, and started doing a few bits, and then the Stampede album was re-released on Cherry Red, and then we did a couple of shows in London, showcase shows for the launch of the album. And then it just went from there. I just started playing again, really. And then I was still working in the film industry all this time, and I was working away a lot on location. And I got asked to do this 3G show in London, and I was in Guadeloupe in the Bahamas, and I did this 3G show, and when I came back, I was on a hiatus in London. I did the 3G show, and the guys I picked are basically what ended up being the band, which is Grand Slam now. The guys I picked to do that show, and it was basically, I did some guitar instrumental stuff, and I did some songs from the Grand Slam stuff.
Was that with Satriani and Vi, the G3?
No. It
was a different version.
It wasn't on that level. It was Dave Bucket Colwell from. Do you know Dave Bucket Colwell?
Yes, he was in Bad Company for a while.
Yeah, he was in Bad Company. So it was me, Dave Bucket, and who was the other guitar player? He was a very well-known guitar player in the English. He did a lot of stuff with a lot of people. I can't remember his name. But we did three, you know, each did our set. Mm-hmm. And when I got back because I was filming in Guadeloupe, and I went back and I said to the guys, like, would they be interested in reforming Grand Slam? And that it wasn't a case of reforming Grand Slam. It was more a case of I wanted to record an album to really show the potential and the reality of the songs that I'd written with Phil, because what was out there was many. Unfortunately, one of the members of the band got hold of all the stuff when Phil Lynott died. He had a little studio in his back garden, and everything got stolen from there.
Oh wow!
Including the masters of the stuff that we'd done, which were 48-track recordings. So somebody had released all these really bad writing demos, which were basically just me and Phil on the Bramble machine doing knocking out song ideas, and those have been released. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think it was a true representation of what the songs were, and obviously the other recordings we'd done had gone missing. We later found out that Philomena, who's Phil Lynott's mother, had them underneath her couch in Ireland. So I wanted to give the fans a proper representation of the songs that we'd written at that time. So it wasn't really on the premise of reforming Grand Slam as Grand Slam. It was just to record that album, and I was going to call it. Obviously, it would have to be called Grand Slam. So, and then from there, we got a lot of interest. We got signed by Marshall Records, and it went on from there. And then we started doing some live shows, and the reaction from the fans has just been incredible, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And it's we're now on our third album. We just finished the third album. I've produced, mixed the last two albums, and that's due for release. It's all done, mastered, ready to go with Silver Lining Records. Who
got a title? Title?
Title is going to be called Slam. So it's all done, ready. It's all packaged. It's all ready to go. But we're looking for a decent release date. The guys from Magnum called me up a couple of months ago and said, would we be interested in doing the Magnum tour? So we're out with Magnum touring later on in the year.
Oh, great.
We're doing some festivals and bits and pieces. But we've got new agents and new management. We've got a wonderful manager, Ace Trump, who used to manage Saxon and the later Lizzie thing, and Ricky Warwick and all those guys. So and Europe, Uriah Heep. I mean, he used to manage all those guys. But so it's this third album. It's probably the best piece of work I've done as writing, and I'm very excited about it. And it's where between us and Silver Lining, we're looking for the best time to release. But we've already done the video for the first single, so we'll have 3 singles coming out over the year, and then whatever date we decide for the album will probably be when we know that we've got a decent batch of shows to promote it, because we don't want to release it and not have any shows in the book type of thing. So we've just signed to a really good agency in Europe, and our record company are fantastic. So we've got it all lined up. It's just a matter of time now. When we decide to get it out there. But I'm very happy with the album, and very happy with it.
Well, definitely when it happens, if you want, please come back to promote that if you want to.
Of course, yeah. I mean, soon as we get any release, I'll get in touch, man, and I'll get something over to you.
Right. So I want to go back a little. So for the formation of Grand Slam, so Phil, John Sykes, and Brian Downey they do a little thing called the Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
After Lizzie.
Yeah.
And John gets the call from David Coverdale, and off he goes running to Whitesnake.
Yeah.
So now, how are you approached with Phil to join this band that he's going to start formation?
Well, Phil called. I mean, going back to right the way back to when I was in Wild Horses, we had the same management as Lizzie, and as I said, Phil got up and played with us a couple of times. The Lizzie management basically told me that it was between me and John regarding being the new guitar player in Thin Lizzy. We all knew that Snowy was going to be out.
For this is Thunder and Lightning before
around
that time.
Before
wow.
Thunder and Lightning, yeah.
Okay.
This is going way back, and Phil tentatively asked me, and I actually went into the studio. They were finishing up what would have been Chinatown, maybe album. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Or
Chinatown. Oh no,
Chinatown
no,
or Renegade, maybe.
Renegade on it.
Renegade was 82. Chinatown was 80.
So yeah, that was Snowy, the last Snowy album he's talking about.
Yeah,
Renegade.
the last Snowy album.
Renegade.
Again, I went to, they were recording in the studio in London, and Phil asked me up, and I went down, and basically we spent the whole night jamming. And I was then told by the Lizzie management that basically, you know, I was in line to be considered for the Lizzie job. And that was right at the time when the whole Stampede thing was happening, when we were getting signed to Polydor.
Mm.
It was at exactly the same time as I was basically in talks with Polydor. We were in talks with Polydor and going through that. So what happened with the Three Musketeers was somebody had pulled out of a tour in Sweden, and a promoter had asked Phil if you could put something together to do the dates that this other band couldn't do, or whoever it was. I can't remember who it was. So he put the Three Musketeers together, which was basically Phil's solo project, really. It's it's solo songs and various bits and pieces. And I think Phil probably had an idea that he was going to form another band with John and Brian eventually, but then obviously John got the offer to go to Whitesnake, and I just got a call from Phil. And there's a club in London called Stringfellows. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but it's a famous nightclub that he used to frequent quite a lot. And at this point, I'd just been waiting for the advance, as I said, from Polydor for the second album of Stampede. And in this period of time, I'd sort of cut all my hair off, and I was racing push bikes, and you know, I looked not very rock and roll at all. Let's just say that. I was very fit and young and everything, but I had no long hair or anything. And anyway, Phil called me up and said, "Look, you know, would you come and meet? I want to put something to you." So he sent a limousine round to I was at my father's house, and he sent a limousine round there. He picked me up. I was in tracksuit bottoms and an old scruffy T-shirt, and got whisked off to this club where everybody is dressed up to the nines, and sat with Phil for the evening. And basically, I just immediately said yes, of course, yeah. So I think we were literally in the studio almost the next day writing together. It was that quick.
Wow. And the chemistry was there, obviously, you know, with you guys.
We had you know, I've said this to a few people. We had, although I was completely and utterly in awe of Phil, I think you know, I was influenced by Phil's writing and the Lizzie thing anyway. So when I was giving him ideas about, you know, stuff that I'd written, it was sort of in his vein anyway. And I think he had a bit of a mutual respect in the writing element, because, you know, I was quite adamant about things in the writing thing, and so was he. So we got on really well, and he took me very much under his wing, I would say. You know, I was still very young. I was still only 21. So
Yeah.
um,
Was he healthy at the time?
he was making a big effort to be as healthy as he could.
Mm.
And there was a big move from the management company. You know, we lost some of the old crew members and various other people around the entourage were sort of let go and asked to, people that were bad influences and had been for some time in that sort of entourage around Phil. So yeah, he made a big effort, but it was very difficult because people were turning up to shows, turning up to the house, turning up to the, with substances.
There was temptation all around in that sense, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult thing for him, but he did make an effort, and to be honest, most of the time in the day, we just sat and wrote all day. We sat and wrote and recorded stuff and put ideas down, and then by the time we've sort of got most of it, enough material together, we started rehearsing the band up, and then I basically moved to Ireland with Phil, and we did a load of pre-production rehearsals with me, Brian Downey, and Phil, and then the rest of the guys came in. Mark Stanway and Dosh Nagel came in eventually, and then we did a warm-up tour in Ireland, and I mean that was just crazy shit, man, because it was supposed to be sort of undercover, and we were playing like these dance halls, probably maximum capacity of like 300 or 400, and we turn up there and there'd be like 2,000 people standing outside this bar.
Wow.
And we couldn't get in. We couldn't find it difficult to even get into the pub. Phil was still getting mobbed. I mean, his following it was just unbelievable.
And were you under the moniker of Grand Slam then, performing?
Yes, yeah, we'd already decided on the name.
Okay.
And
then what was it like? Half Lizzie? Oh, because I read that when you guys really went for it, you only wanted to play 3 Lizzie songs. But in the beginning, were you doing more than that, or was it a little Clear and Lizzie?
Not really. I mean, we did things, probably different things.
And
I think
so Sarah, you were doing 19.
We did Sarah.
Whiskey,
yeah. We even did a version of his Top of the Pops song, Yellow Peril.
Oh, okay.
And we did Lonely Hearts. I would say, yeah, there were more. It wasn't that much Lizzie. We did Cold Sweat. Yeah, I mean, we did a few of the classics, obviously, but I think
you wanted to make it your own, right? Your original.
Yeah. It was an eclectic mix of songs, and as it went on, we introduced more and more original Grand Slam material.
Was Mark Stanway in Magnum at the same time that he was doing this project with you?
Well, that I went and joined Magnum Tony Clarkin was ill, so in '83 when Phil asked, when Phil originally asked me to do the thing, we sat down and we wrote and we got the thing, and then I got asked to do the Magnum tour because Tony was ill and he didn't know whether he could make the whole of the tour. So they gave me 2 days and I went away and learned all the material, but they wanted me to play the rhythm parts and the lead parts, learn both parts, because they didn't know how long Tony was going to last. And anyway, I did the first show, and then the next day I woke up in the tour bus, and Tony had gone. So it's like he did one show, and then he left. So I ended up finished. I did the whole rest of the Storytellers Night tour, and that was with Mark and all the original Magnum guys and Mickey Barker. So in that respect, yes, he was still doing Magnum. Okay. but Mark wasn't really involved in all the embryos of what we were doing. I mean, basically, he was employed as a keyboard player. Really,
You walked in on it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Mark was basically a keyboard player.
So, was it difficult, Laurence, to get a record deal at that time for Phil?
Yes. The reason why, I mean, you've probably read this, but I mean, in the Phil being of the stature he was in the UK, especially, there was quite a lot of bad press going around because he'd been arrested and been basically his girlfriend was arrested and charged with drug offences. But the thing is, the red top press in England had got hold of. We had two limousines, Volvos limousines, and they got hold of the registration of these cars and basically gave them out to everybody, including the police and everybody. So everywhere we went, we've been followed. So as far as the record companies were concerned,
He was a bad apple, basically.
well, Phil's reputation had been been soiled by the fact that the drugs, drugs in quote, it was all over the papers everywhere, and it didn't stop. It went on for quite a while because even when we were touring with Grand Slam, we used to we'd come out of the gig or come out of the hotel to go to the gig, and there'd be like 4 or 5 police cars just sitting outside, and they'd follow you to the gig and then follow you back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a strange time in that respect, but yeah, difficult to get the deal. But what happened was when I came over to record the stuff with Huey Lewis, Geffen Records had asked me that Geffen Records asked for me to record 2 or 3 songs that they'd heard of mine on a demo that I did with Finn Muir, who was the singer of Wasted.
Mm-hmm.
And these were the songs, the two or three of these songs I suggested for Grand Slam. And when I got to America, Huey picked me up and said, I think his name's Gary Gersh from Geffen Records, said, can you record these songs anyway? I went in, rehearsed the songs with the News. It was me and the News, did all the backing tracks. And we recorded those songs in the plant in Sausalito. And then when Phil couldn't be there because of the drug thing, and he'd also lost his passport, he couldn't be there. So we had to wait a while for Phil to get there. So eventually Phil turned up on an out-of-date Irish passport. How he got in, I don't know, but he did. He got through on an out-of-date Irish passport. And that's when I noticed that Phil wasn't in a good way, and so did Huey, because Huey, the whole thing about Huey said he would put his name to the production on the album, which was going to be the eventual goal. But when Phil arrived, he was not in a good way. So when we got back to England, it was me and the road manager out in America for what seemed like an age, waiting for Phil to come. And then when we'd finished, Huey said to me, Phil's not it's not sounding great, is it? The voice, backing tracks and everything were fantastic. It was like not great. And we went back to England, and unknown to me, the management company presented those songs to a record company to get Phil a solo deal, which is why he released 19 as a solo.
Oh.
But he got the deal on the songs that I'd recorded in Sausalito. So I wasn't particularly happy. I mean, I never fell out with Phil, but I wasn't happy with the management, what they'd done, because it was all a little bit secret squirrel. So
Did you get credit for that though?
I have got credit for it now, yeah. For
Oh.
19, yeah. I mean, everybody knows I wrote 19.
I had that single. Yep.
Yeah.
When it came out, I got that. Yeah, because that was one of the last things that he did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was probably the second song that we wrote together.
And which album was with you with Lewis and the News that you were working on?
I wasn't working with Huey. He was producing the material that we were.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The interesting thing is Mark Langer was on holiday and staying at Huey's house, and Mark couldn't keep himself away, so Mark came into the studio and basically took over the production of the whole thing. Yeah. So, yeah, great times, interesting times for me. I mean, stories of the studio in Sausalito and the engineer, and he was telling me about Otis Redding and sitting on the dock of the bay and all the things that had been recorded there. So it was an incredible time for me.
And how many gigs did you get with Grand Slam? How many live shows did you actually able to do? Did you get a
Over the
tour out
time,
of it, or?
no, we did loads of shows. We did a
You did
lot of
festivals
shows.
too, right?
Yeah, we did. I would say we probably got about 4 or 5 festivals. We did some. We did Status Quo did their farewell concert in a football stadium in Crystal Palace in London, which I think was one of the biggest crowds that we got to play to. It was massive. It was packed. The whole football stadium was absolutely full, and we were supporting Status Quo. We were due to go on. Excuse me.
Okay.
Sorry, the name's going to escape me, but Steve, the guitar player from Bruce Springsteen's band.
Oh, Little Steven.
Yeah, Little Steven. He was on the bill, but he got scared because I think I think there was about 4 or 5 bands on the bill, and it was a one-day affair. I think the second band went on were getting things thrown at them on the stage, and I think Steve Stevens Little Steven bottled it because he I think he was scared about getting stuff thrown at him, so he went on earlier or later. I can't remember, but essentially that was a great show for us. We had a great time, but we were doing stuff like that, Nostril Priory, which was a big festival. Yeah, we did
And you
quite a
would have
few
thought
shows.
the power of the band then and how strong the material was that now, and especially you're saying that as this is going on, did the news stories die and like no music companies came out and said, "Wow, look at this band's playing great live." Because I mean, like I said, we have some of
Yeah,
that
I mean,
bootleg stuff.
the live reviews and everybody that came to see us loved it.
Right.
I think it was. I can't. I mean, for me, everything sort of went a bit dead after I got back from the States. There didn't seem to be anything happening. Anything that had happened is what happened is basically Phil did the 19 thing and released that, but there were no shows, and because it was a solo thing, and none of us, I mean, I was talking to Phil, but I mean, we weren't discussing going out and playing live or anything to do with Grand Slam, particularly at that point. So I sort of thought, well, maybe it's died a death. I mean, the management company were all telling me that the record companies were saying no, and it was all down to the drug.
He didn't go out to promote 19. He didn't do any shows or anything like that for it.
I don't think no. I think he did a TV show in Norway. I don't think he did very much else.
No backing band with him for that.
No, he did it as a. He did it as a. He did
So
it.
he just lip synced over the song.
Yeah, I don't think he played it live much after that.
Was it a shock to you, him passing away? You know, or was it like
in a way yes, and in a way no. But as I said, you know, I'm still reasonably young, and I hadn't really lost a lot of people in my life at that point, and I was very close. I was very close to Phil, so it was shocking in that way. And Phil, although there was a fair amount of abuse and stuff like that, I mean, he had a massive constitution, and nothing ever seemed to really particularly affect him that much. You know, the only thing with the drug thing would, you'd notice mood swings every now and again, but other than that, he was a gent 90% of the time, and his constitution, you wouldn't really notice anything. There were a few times when we were on tour in England, and we were flying backwards and forwards from London to Glasgow, and we were supposed to go to Birmingham, and little known to me, we'd been diverted. When we got there, I just walked onto the plane. I didn't realise that they changed the flights and sent us back to London so Phil could see his dealer.
Oh wow!
And then we flew back to Glasgow, and by that time, Phil was going through the whole thing of what that particular drug does to you. But he always managed to sing and play. He didn't really. I mean, maybe he'd been doing it for quite a long time by that time, but I mean, he was always professional. What I would call professional, and do the show.
You never canceled gigs or anything with him?
No, not that I can remember. I don't think so. I think Phil loved playing. I mean, he lived for it. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, the other side of it took over a bit too much.
And let me ask you: are you a person like? Did you carry a camera? Do you have memories, a photo book, or did you collect anything as your years went on? Like if you had a tour shirt you made or anything like that. Do you have a collection of stuff like that from your history?
No, I mean, I have the odd photograph, but no, I mean, when we had the, I've actually sold a few to fans of signed band pictures that we had made up.
Oh, the stills.
Yeah, the stills and all that. No, back then, we didn't have the phones, did we? We didn't have any of that sort of things, and it's like, not really. I mean, it was mainly things from fans, fans sending you pictures or whatever of different times, but. Yeah, I wish. There's probably, I mean, there's a few things that I miss from that era, or I missed out on in that era, and that was, there were two guitars that went missing from Phil's studio, which were, one was one that he gave me, and one was mine.
Wow.
And there were. When we went on tour with Grand Slam, basically we had the Thin Lizzy wardrobe, you know, so we had a wardrobe manager that used to wheel in the wardrobe and wash and clean all the clothes and stuff. And, you know, it still had most of the regalia from Thunder and Lightning and maybe the two tours before that in it. So, you know, it was full of stuff. And Phil was always like throwing me jackets, going, "You can't wear this jacket." And he said, "You can have this one." You know, and he'd give, you know, he'd go, "You can have this." Um, and you know, I wish I still had some of those things.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about how did X UFO happen?
Uh, well, in that little time in '86, around the time I did my solo album in Japan, I did a couple of shows for a band in Spain called Tarzan that were signed to Atlantic, I think. And it
That
was
was Danny's band, right? From UFO.
Danny's band.
Yeah.
And I went out there to replace their guitar player, just for a short stint. I think they had some shows in the book, and I went out there. I think they wanted me to join the band, but anyway, I got to know Danny and Michelle, and the bass player in the band was a really good friend of mine, Ralph Hood. We went out and did some shows. We did some TV shows and various other things, and that's where I got to meet Danny. So I knew Danny. And then Danny and Clive basically got talking and said, "Do you think it would be a good idea if we went out and did the songs that we wrote with UFO and called it X UFO?" And that's sort of what we did. That was the initial idea of it. We obviously ended up playing some of the more classic songs.
Soon as this came out, Laurence, it was bought.
Yeah.
Soon. I got this, the original one from, I guess, X Records. It was right. X Music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Made. And you did this in Steve Mann's studio, right? This was all mixed and everything.
Yeah.
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 Very excited. We were very excited, believe me, and especially what the lineup was, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we did it just really to get out there and do some playing, and it was probably around the time, not long after I sort of started playing again, you know, properly. So it was quite an exciting time for us, and we didn't know where it was going to go or what it was going to do, and but we ended up getting asked to do quite a lot of festivals in Europe and festivals in England. We didn't really tour that much. We did a few shows, but we mainly got European festivals and stuff because they would pay well and it'd be worthwhile, you know, going. So yeah, and then after that we had the biggest thing we had an issue with was like with the agents. They were going, "So what are you, a tribute band or are you a real band or what are you?" And it's like, no, we're all ex-members of UFO or Michael Schenker, and we're going out playing the songs that, you know, that we like from UFO, from our stints in UFO, and songs that we'd written because Danny, you know, wrote Martian Landscape and various other things, and so that's why we ended up changing the name to House of X, because the agents didn't know where to put us, and you know, obviously you're probably aware of, like, you know, at that time it was when the tribute act things was growing, and everybody, you know, all the agents were dealing with tribute acts, and they're going, "Are you a tribute UFO or are you a real?" It's like trying to explain to them what we were was quite difficult. So yeah.
And I loved your take on
we had a great time. We had a great time. You know, myself, Clive, and Rocky. You know, as a band playing. You know, Danny started playing when we started. Danny started. He was singing and playing the keyboards, but he soon wanted to be more of a front man and ended up not really playing any keyboards. So it sort of became like the original UFO with no keyboards in it, really. So
I think UFO is essential with the keyboards.
yeah,
you need that sound.
yeah.
Behind it.
I think Danny used to sort of we do everything as a three-piece, apart from something like Love to Love or the beginning of Doctor Doctor or whatever, which is definitely essential.
And now coming up, touring for 26 or 27 with Grand Slam. What's the deal?
Yeah, well, we're as I said, we're out with Magnum at the end of the in August, September,
Okay.
October, UK. We've got a couple of festivals in Holland, in Europe, in August, I think. We've sort of put a little bit of stuff on hold until we know when the album release is going to happen, and then we've got a decent batch of shows. But our agents are concentrating on all the festivals and touring, basically starting 27. I know it sounds like a long time, but
That's not.
it takes a long time to put these things in place these days, and festivals are now booked up like 2 years, anything up to 2 years in advance. So, but we'll get some slots. We'll get some slots and stuff because we're normally first in line when it comes to if somebody can't make it over from your side of the pond or something at the festival, then we get asked to come in and fill the slot. So we're expecting a pretty busy year 2027, but right now we're in the middle of, we finished the first video for the first single. I'm going back to England in a week or two, and we're filming probably another 3 videos for the album.
That's a big push.
Yeah.
So you got some good promotion going on with that. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, the record company are really fantastic. Fantastic. We couldn't want for any more. They've been brilliant with us.
I wish you would come to the States.
Oh yeah, I wish we could come stateside. We get asked a lot. A lot of the fan base, they're always on our socials saying, "Please come to America. Please come to America."
You need like a package deal, because it was like Alcatraz, Girls' School, or like it was Saxon, Uriah Heep. It's like one of those deals that you need to come.
Yeah.
And tour.
Well, that's what we did last year. We were out there. We were not in America, but in Europe. It was us, Saxon, and Girls' School did. I think we did 8 weeks. Every bloody country. I don't think there was a country we didn't go to in Europe. It was a long old trek.
That's a nice package, though, boy. Holy.
Yeah. That was great fun. Yeah, we have, and we didn't play to less than 5,000 every night.
Wow.
It was rammed.
Wow.
It was rammed. Great time, and we're trying to. We are talking to Saxon about going out with Saxon again, if we can. I mean, as we've said, we've got ties with Saxon through the record company. And they've also got Uriah Heep, Taiketo. They've got quite a big roster, so we might look at putting a package together at some point.
And what are you doing with your downtime now, Laurence?
I live here in the sun. I've got 3 dogs, about 30, 40 guitars, and I play and write a lot, but I do have a little pickup band here, and I've been very blessed to become like a bit of a local celebrity, and then the people come out to see me play, and I just have fun playing, and sometimes it gives you a bit of pocket money, and it keeps you alive and it keeps you working. But I'm back to England and stuff with the Grand Slam stuff. I was in the studio for 8 weeks at the beginning of the year, so I'm busy with stuff, but my downtime, I ride my motorbike. I'm involved in a motorbike tour Spain thing that my friends have here called Motorbike Tour Spain, and I try and keep myself busy, but mainly writing and playing, really. And I'm actually really enjoying playing now. Really enjoying playing more, and it keeps your chops together, and but it's more about the enthusiasm. It's you go through times in your life when you don't have the power within you to want to play or whatever. But at the moment, I feel great about playing, and I feel really enthusiastic.
Well, the last down Wheel of Fortune is really solid, man. And like I said, I read a review and I agree that the first song, "There Goes My Heart," got that Lizzie feel to it. The guitar playing is outstanding, man. It's really a solid album. Great stuff.
Thank you, man. Yeah, no, I was very happy with it, and it's the first album really I've been allowed to write, record, mix, and produce and mix. Do you know what I mean?
It sounds great. Great production on it.
Yeah, no, I was very happy with it. Very happy with it, and the only thing about I'll just tell you a small fact about the "There Goes My Heart" is that I wrote it as a ballad for my wife, and in its original format, it was very much a sloppy love song in some respects, and then Mike and I worked on it, and it ended up being about a car. So she was looking for a Pattie Boyd moment with George Harrison and Eric Clapton writing, and then it ended up being about car. But she did star in the video, so she got that.
She was like, "Where's my Angie?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I still owe her one. I'm not getting away with it, so it's gonna happen.
You owe her one now, still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any promote websites or anything that people can reach out?
Obviously, Grand Slam Rocks on Facebook, grandslamrocks.com.
Do you sell merch on there, Laurence?
I think we sell merch on the website. I think we're in the point of changing it around because I know that we outsourced it to somebody, and I think our lovely manager in America is sorting out a different distributor, so that might change.
Okay. Yeah, because I definitely need a Grand Slam shirt to wear.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll put you in touch with Ace, and then I'll get him to get you one.
Very good. Very good. I want to thank.
Come to Europe and come see.
Well, you know what? I'm coming out. I'm turning 60 next year, and I'm definitely coming out to London. I want to do a week, and then we're going to do a cruise from there. But I would love to see maybe if you're in the area or at the time that I come out. I'd love to.
Yeah, shout me up, man.
Yeah, man. We'll have some fish and chips and a beer and a pint. Yeah. Laurence, honestly, it's been a pleasure. Like I said, when the new album comes out, you have an open door policy, and it really is an honor that you even reached out and said hello to us and want to talk.
Yeah, man. I mean, I as soon as I get anything, and when we release the first single, I'd love to send you the link to the song and the video and everything, and see what you think.
Absolutely. All right, so I want to thank everybody for staying with us. Again, this was a long one, but this was a great one as usual. And you can follow, as Laurence said, on his stuff, and we have on Facebook Hard Rock History Show. You can follow us there, and this interview will go up once a week. We put something up. Today we put up Anthony Esposito's interview, and next week will be Lawrence's interview because we want to spread it out and let everybody enjoy it for what it is. So everybody want to hard rock hard and enjoy the day. Laurence, don't go anywhere. We want to say goodbye to you on our own. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Take care.